So we're talking all about composing today, and I love to do composing with my students. Every year, it's something we love to do once a year as a big project, and we put together these lovely books. So here are some of the ones we've created previously. So this is this year's one. This is the most recent. It's called the Folk Song Reinvention because we took Irish tunes, Irish folk tunes, and we recreated them. So students composed a full piece based on a folk song that I gave them, or a dance tune that I gave them. So we use that as the A theme, and then they harmonize that, and then they compose their own B theme, and we put it into ABA form and added embellishments upon the repeat. So that was this year. We do something different every year. Let me see if I can go gradually back in time. The next one, going backwards, last year we did Chatter and Tunes, this one right here. This was our composing project, and this was actually a songwriting project, so it was really fun. In a way, this was one of my favorites. I really enjoyed doing this one with students. So each student composed or wrote some words as if it was a poem, like lyrics to a song, but I told them it's like writing a poem, and it can be about your own topic, whatever you like, and we helped them come up with a topic. And then those lyrics went to another student who composed the music. So we actually kind of swapped them around. Everyone got lyrics from another student. And so the tunes all say words by so-and-so and music by so-and-so. And here's what one of those looks like. Just covering up my students' names there. So this is the C, and you'll see the words there are beautiful, and then the student composed and they added, in this case, a little waltzing pattern in the bass. So that one, I actually also had a singer record all of the songs, and we posted them on YouTube at the end of our last year's digital concert. So that was really fun because the students didn't know we were doing that, and it was a big surprise, and it was just great to hear them coming to life, and the singer really got a kick out of some of my students' lyrics as well. Then the year before that was 2020, as we all know what that means. So this was collaborative compositions, and we did this as a pass it around thing. So kind of like Chatters and Tunes that I just showed you, students passed it on, but we passed it on 4 times. So each tune was touched by at least 4 students, some of them 6 students. So they wrote the melody, and then another student wrote the B melody, and then another student chose the form and added the harmony, and another student, or sometimes pairs of students, chose the titles and the dynamics. So it was really, really fun. And I have to be careful to find a page where I can easily cover up the student's name. Hang on. Okay, I'm going to have to do a two-hander. Here we go. So this is what these look like this. Yeah, so these were all one-pagers, which is why I'm having trouble covering everyone's names, but you get the idea, and all different patterns, of course. Really, really fun to do that and pass it along in that way. Connect up the students when we were all doing online lessons. The year before that, we had this one, Fantastic Fiction. So this was based on a book or movie or story of any kind of their choice. They could take a character or an element of the story and turn it into a piece, or do a piece inspired based on that. So let me see. They're all so fun. Okay, what about these two? So we've got Let Your Hair Down over here, which I think we can guess what it's inspired by. Yes, have a guess in the chat. And The Slippery Slip, which I actually forget what that novel was called, but I remember her putting that together. So really fun to put those together as well. And then the year before that, we did a classic theme, which was Circus Collective. So this one, they all did different circus acts. And the extra thing we added here was that we had students draw a picture. I loved this edition. I can show you quickly how you would do this later when we're putting it in Canva. But yeah, they did a picture to go with their piece. So really fun. So let me just show you briefly where those projects live inside Vibrant Music Teaching in case you're a member. And then I'm going to walk you through how I go about putting all of this together and creating these books and how you can do it too. So this is the library, and I've just selected our composing section here in the printable library, printable/downloadables. So you'll see we have some blank manuscript paper in lots of different sizes there. That can be really handy. And then chatterings and tunes, which I've just showed you. Micro composition mini books, which are great if you have shorter lessons, and these bigger projects we're talking about today just sound like there's no shot of you fitting that in. These are fabulous. You can still include composing. It's a great way to do it. Fantastic fiction, which I showed you as well. That's a course, so that's separate. Then we have Circus Collective, I showed you. And we have Spring Themes and Animal Menagerie here. So these first two, I actually did not do a book. I did a CD for this one and a SoundCloud page for this one. So I focused on the audio. And then for the past 5 years, I've switched over to printing a book because I just think it's so special for them to see their name in print. And some of the students are like, oh great, thanks, but some of them really get a kick out of it. They really think, oh my gosh, like this looks like real music, and it really means a lot to them. So I prefer that now, but a CD or a SoundCloud page I would say are a really good option, or you can put together a video. So those are some of our composing projects. Now let's get started as if we were doing a project with a student. Okay, so I'm in Musescore. If you haven't met Musescore before, it is a free composing software that you download. So it's not in the browser like something like Noteflight. You can use that too, there's no problem with it. I'm more comfortable with Musescore. I feel it has more features than Noteflight, and I just prefer it. But I know people like Noteflight because it's browser based, so you do you. But we're going to go and create a new document. And we're going to call it test, okay? Test. Okay. We're going to call it test, and we're going to write in the composer as teacher son. Okay? You put the copyright there if you want. Continue. And then I'm going to go for grand staff. Continue. I'm going to make us compose in my favorite major key, G flat major. And I'm going to make it 16 bars, okay? So it's not too overwhelming. I'm going to change that 4/4 to a 3/4 without any opportunity. Okay, I'm not going to set the tempo because we'll do that later. So I'm just going to click done. Now, here's the first thing I do. I always split it up into 4-bar sections on my page straight away. So I'm going to click on this bar line here and hit the return key on my keyboard to put in a line break, and I'll do that again, and I'll do that again. Feel free to rewatch this replay later and slow me down, pause at any stage, but I'll just go through all the steps as I do them. Then I'm going to set up some formatting things. So really, I would set this up as a template and I would keep it just as a backup. But I also, I'm just going to save this to my downloads. That's a little tip, general computer tip, I guess, or habit of mine, is things I don't actually want to save forever. I save to my downloads folder and then I just delete. So that's my temporary folder. Okay, so I've got these things set up. Now I'm going to go up and I'm going to go to format and style. Let's do page settings first, actually. Let's do page settings. I'm going to go to format and page settings. And then I have this in A4. If you're a letter person, if you're over in North America, you'll change that to letter. That's totally fine. A4 is what's normal over here. And then I'm going to change the staff space straight away. So for younger students, I like 2.2 as a nice big notation size. 2 is also great. 1.8 is great. Like, you can go smaller if your student is further ahead. But I like 2.2 as something that looks more like what they see in their method books. So we'll go with 2.2. And see, it makes everything bigger. And now I'm going to go to style. So format and style. And this is where I'm going to set up what I want them to look like. Just going to make this a bit smaller so you can see what's happening. Set up what I want it to look like so that we can save our style and save this as a template, okay? So we're going to experiment with different ones of these. You can let me know which ones you like. Maybe you would use this for like a jazzy book or Muse Jazz if you're doing that kind of theme. You've got Gonville. You've got Emmentaler. You've got Bravura. And you've got Leland. I like Leland. So I'm going to leave it there, but let me know which one you like. Bravura is okay. Or Bravura, whatever. But I don't like Emmentaler. And I don't like Gonville because of the bass clef. Watch the bass clef really closely. It doesn't go into the bottom space. Right? Whereas Leland it is. And like that's what I teach students it should be, so that's what I like. But you can set it as whatever you like. Then you've got your page settings if you want to change the margins here and stuff. And if you're finding things are spaced out weird, it's a good idea to go in here and disable the vertical justification, but I would by default just leave it on. Maximum minimum system distances, again, just if things are looking weird, you can come back here and check that. But I'm going to go straight away to text styles. And this is where I'm going to set up my fonts the way I want them. Okay, so I have a bajillion fonts on my computer. You won't, but you could choose any one you want. Why not? I'm just going to go with Farm New. I'm going to set the same one for the composer. And see if it's big enough. I don't really like that. I'm going to make it bigger for the student's name. And let me know if any of this is unclear. Is there any others I want to change? No, I'm going to leave all the rest of them. I think they're all right. So I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to go to Format and then Save Style. So when I discovered this feature, I absolutely loved it. And I use it all the time now. So now I have this style called VMTC for us. And I can load style. And click on it and it'll automatically have like the correct font and the correct choice of musical font and all that stuff. So I really like that because sometimes the other teachers here or like I just forget or a student does something at home or whatever, I have a document that's not already in the same style and it's not based on our template. And so that means I can just quickly change it all back the way it should be, especially if we make changes by accident. Okay. So I'm going to do one more thing here because that's going to annoy me. I've forgotten where that is actually. So I might leave it unless I find it really quick. No, okay, don't worry about it. Anyway, if that annoys you too, there is a way to get rid of this indentation. I don't like it on single piano scores, but that's personal preference. Okay, so then I have this template set up, and this is when I start working with students. So here's what I want you to keep in mind. You don't need to do all of this in your own free time. Please, please don't, okay? Do this with students. So the way I work in my composing projects is first we start off by them handwriting things, or the teacher handwriting it if it's like just going to be way too slow for them to do it. If they're brand new or really young, they might do a few note heads and then we take over and just do it for them. Or if they're just really unenthusiastic about doing the composing project, and this is part of the reason why, again, we would just take over and be there. I say, well, I shall become your amanuensis. And they don't know what that means, but it sounds fancy and off we go. So we do it all by hand first and we get the rough shape of things down, and it can be quite sketchy and like arrows going around the place and scribbled out bits, fine. But something is written by hand. And then in the lesson, we make a copy of the template. So we just go save as, or you can just duplicate the file, and we're going to put in their score. So if they are age 9 or over, as a general rule of thumb, age 9 or over, I will have them do this themselves, at least for the first bit. So when you're starting to put it in, if you haven't used Musescore before, you need to go into note entry mode. And I actually teach students to do this just using the mouse. So I do have them click on the N. When I'm inputting things, I use the keyboard a lot, but when I have students do it, I just have them keep it simple. Everything's on the screen. They don't have to remember keyboard shortcuts. And then if there's someone who's really enthusiastic about it and catching on very quickly, I will say, actually, you can just hit N and then N to go out of it. So they select their note value using the mouse, and then they just click to put them in. And if I find that they're really inaccurate with a mouse, I'll say, you can actually use the letters on the keyboard to put these in. Right? So I'm just tapping the keyboard there. So it's up to them which way they do it, but when they are less comfortable with a mouse, maybe they always use tablets, they really haven't used mice much yet, then often they prefer the letters on the keyboard, and that's great, and I'll help them as much as needed. So I have them change the key signature and the time signature, of course, first, and then they put in their notes, and then, and then put in the left hand. Actually, that's a good example. Let me do that again. So they put in the left hand, and if something crazy happens, I just help them deal with that, right? So we go through. It might take several lessons, as in not the full lesson, but like 10 minutes out of the lesson for a few lessons in a row to get that input. But again, if we're falling behind, if a student is having a lot of trouble with that, then I will do some of the work in between for them, like while they're playing a piece or figuring out the next part of their composition, right? Or with them watching me. Sometimes it is really good for students to see you put it in. It's still really good experience for them. So that's how we do that. And then of course, once they have their whole piece put in, we'll just pretend it's all put in now. In fact, let's just pretend we have some lovely notes all over the place, okay? Yes, I'm cheating. Okay, this is how our beautiful piece looks now. So we've got something everywhere. Now, we would next set the tempo. So here's the way we work on this in my studio. We go to View and Play Panel to pull this up. And then I ask them, I say, okay, it's set at 120 right now. And if they get confused by the percentage here, I show them, no, it's this one we're looking at. So what would you like to try? And they say 200. Because they always say a faster tempo. No, not all of them do, but some do. Quite a lot do, okay? So they say 200, we tried it that. 200 isn't a bad idea for all of these breathes that I put in, right? No, they are using the mouse. When we're putting notes in, they're using the mouse to put them in, and I would only have them use the keyboard, as in the computer keyboard, if they're really comfortable and they prefer to do that. Or if they're really uncomfortable with the mouse, I'd have them use the keyboard just for the letter name entry, if they find that easier. But I don't have it hooked up to MIDI. My computer is actually kind of far away from my keyboard and has a line input, but not MIDI at the moment. But anyway, I don't like MIDI input. It's just not my style. I know it's faster for many people, but for students, I want them to see everything they're doing and it to be really user-friendly, and them to feel like if they want to do this at home, they can. They don't need anything else, right? So we test out different tempi, and then they say, actually, it sounds better at 100. Let's stick with that. Okay, so we've got our tempo. Then we go to the tempo, and I say to them, okay, well, what do you think 100 is out of all these words? And that shows up differently on my other computer. Sorry, let me scroll down here. So, out of all these words, I give them a hint that they're in order, and they say andante. I'm like, oh, maybe andante, So we put that in. I don't like for them to just go for the number, but I do then put in the number, change it here for them. I just do this. I don't have them do this. And then click on it so it's blue and press V on your keyboard and it will go grey like that. That means it's invisible, but it does apply. And then I'm going to set this back at 100. Okay. So now it's going to play it at 100 even though it says Antantino, and they might track that as 105 or something, right? So they have their tempo, then we put in the dynamics. They love this part because it goes super quickly and they actually get really creative with it, get really into dynamics and what the different ones mean. A lot of them want to go for triple F or whatever, and then they hear Musescore reproduce it. Actually, that's a handy thing about this. If you have students who love loud, if you put in the, like even fortissimo in Musescore, it's way too loud. Like it's not what anyone would play. So that's really handy if you want to dissuade people. But let's say they put in this, and then under lines you can find, the various different, diminuendi, scendi, whatever. Obviously this is impossible. I'm just marking some random stuff. So then we could have pedaling if we wanted. If we're not familiar, you just select the notes you want it to go between, and you can use these angled lines. It's the way I like to do it anyway. And I just put it in like that and keep going for as long as they want pedal. They want it to end there. So a lot of these steps is where I might have taken over by now and they're just directing me and I'm putting it in, like, because we need to speed things up a bit. But at least a few notes at the start, and often the whole of the notation they do themselves. And if they are older, they can also do the tempi and all of this stuff. It's not beyond them at all. Okay, so that is it. This was not meant to be a Musescore tutorial, so I hope I've given you some idea if you are new to Musescore of what you can do, but it's meant to be, this is what I would do with students type tutorial, right? So I'm assuming you have some knowledge of it. If you don't, use the notation software you're most comfortable with, or learn to use Musescore. There's loads of tutorials on it, but that's the basics of how I use it with students. We've one last step to do here now. So this is our completed score. Let's just pretend it's all ready to go, okay? And we're happy with all the styling and everything. I'll often do a final edit, like if there's any untidiness or we needed to change where the line breaks are or whatever, like just to make it look tidy. And then I will export it. So I'm going to go to File and Export. I'm trying not to use keyboard shortcuts here on the video with you because I know it's confusing to follow. So I'm going to go to Export, and then it shows up with this. And I just export a PDF file, a PNG, whatever. So this step is where it depends on what you're going to do next. So you have a few options of where you're going to go from here. What we're going to do on this video together is we're going to put everything into Canva. What I actually do for my actual books is put them into Adobe InDesign, but that is completely overkill if you don't already have it and use it. Okay, I'm just mentioning it in case I have people out there who are designers and they're like, okay, great, I'll just put them in there and that means something to them. If that means nothing to you, Canva is probably the easiest. The other option you have though is to export all the PDF files and just use a PDF combiner, and you can look up different software that does that. Adobe Acrobat is one that would do that. That's paid. There are free options out there for sure, and definitely cheaper than Acrobat. So yeah, mess around, see what you can come up with in terms of combining the PDF files. You'll find a tutorial for that. So that's a simple way to do it if you don't need nitty-gritty control. If you're like, I just want them to go together in the simplest way possible, that would be the simplest way possible. But Canva is very user-friendly and a lot of people use it already. So that's what we're going to go into, which is why I am going to select PNG right now. If you don't know what that is, it is like a JPEG, but more suited to things like lines and text and graphics. JPEG is more suited to photos. Okay? That's the basic breakdown of those. That means nothing to you. Just choose PNG. Trust me on that. And you don't select transparent background. We don't need that. I'm going to export it. Sometimes that's on by default, so do test that. I'm going to save that to my downloads. And we are going to move programs. So now we're in Canva. And in Canva, all I've done so far before we started, and is start a new A4 document. That's it. I want to create new A4 document. If you're using letter paper, letter. That's all I needed to do so far. It's chosen print letterheads. I don't really care what it calls it. And I've changed my file name. That's all I've done. So here's where Canva is much more user-friendly than design software that I use for a beginner, etc. However, there's one thing about this that is going to be less user-friendly than if you used design software, and that is you need to think about the facing pages because Canva does not do that, okay? So the facing pages are, I'm going to select our latest book to show you because the issue is if you have a 2-page piece, you want to make sure they're facing. You don't want to have page turns in every piece. That would be a nightmare to read, right? So that's where you need to think about what side of the page am I on. And in design software, it would show like that on a 2-page spread, but in this it won't. So we just need to be careful. I'll show you what I mean. Andrea, I prefer the control I get over importing them as images into Canva. That's why we're doing it this way. This is just one way to do everything. There's always multiple options. So what I'm actually going to do first is I'm going to put in a half page. I'm going to jump back over here one more time to show you. This is a title page, or sometimes called a half page, quarter page, right? So in most professionally printed books, they have this, and I think it's a nice touch to have it. And then you're going to have your contents, which I'm not going to show you because I can't block all those students' names live. But I have a table of contents, and then I have all the pieces. That's all that's included. So we're going to create our half page or title page, and I'm just going to put some text in, and let's say it's called Testerson's Amazing Studio Composing Project. Call it whatever you like. You saw all the different names I have. If you're using one of our projects, you can just use those names. And then if you want to put more, I usually put this. You don't have to do the lovingly created. You could do just created by, whatever, but I like that kind of wording because I don't want to say it's by me and I don't want to say it's by one of the students. So that's normally what I put, and you'll see I have some kind of image. So you can mess around in Canva. You can put something there. You could have a heart if that was your theme, right? If it was about something to do with Valentine's Day, I don't know. You can put something there. It does need to be black and white though, so this is a terrible choice, sorry. Let's do this. Let's look up a sketchy one. No? Okay. Okay, smiley face. Great. Literally, you can play around with this and only do it if it's fun for you, and do put a time limit on it for yourself because this could take hours if you get really sidetracked. Okay, then I'm going to add a page and I would put my contents in here. Now, because again, I use InDesign, this would be automatic for me, but it's not going to be for you. So you just kind of have to write out the contents. I can't see what I'm doing for this angle, but you get the idea. Page 9. You can do this whatever format you like, but that's just an idea. So the contents are there. Now, here's where we need to think about our facing pages, okay? If your content is only going to take up one page, I would recommend actually putting a blank page in here and then having your contents here. So let me demonstrate that, which is a good book to show you this. See if I can find a good example for you. Okay. Oh, and this one's even color inside, so it does depend on your printer. Right. Sorry, wrong button. Okay, so I've got Fantastic Fiction, right, by the students of Colourful Keys Piano Studio. And then over the page, I actually have a completely blank page. So that here, on this side, I have the contents, right? So I've got blank page, contents. I'm just going to show you here what I mean. So you would have your half pages on the other side of this. Then you want a blank page because you want the contents to be on this side. Does that make sense? Let me know if not. But if you didn't do that, you'd be starting with a piece facing the contents. And I think that looks ugly. Sorry for that blunt word, but I just don't think it looks right. It's not how it would be done. So that's what I would do if you have one page of contents. If you have 2 pages of contents, you just put them on the next 2 pages so that they are facing. Let me show you in this view in Canva so I can kind of give you an overview. So we've got just going to answer Angie's question there since this is relevant to this. So if you print out all the compositions, title page, the contents in order, and take them to the printers, they are going to be scanning those and reproducing them or photocopying them and then binding them. You'll see that my books are either saddle stitched, meaning stapled, or perfect bound, meaning glued into a spine. They are not just bound with a coil binder. That's another option, and you can do that at home. But if you want to take it to a commercial printer, have the full print quality of your files, like not make anything even a tiny bit pixelated, and have everything the way you want it, this is the way to do it. Now, nothing wrong with your option. If that makes you more comfortable, do that. But this is why I'm doing it this way. Okay, so we've got this. This is going to appear on our right-hand side page as we open the cover. Then we turn over that page. This is the left side of that, the double page spread. And now we've got the contents on this side. Let me know if I'm being clear here because it is hard to demonstrate in this format. But I'm going to go here, and this is going to be my first page that is a student composition, and it is on the left page. So you need to keep in mind where you are all the time. So if it's a even number, it's going to be the left page, and then the following odd number is the right page facing that. So if you have a student composition that is 2 pages, you want them even odd, not odd even. Okay? Hope that's clear. So I would just take my PNG file that we've exported, or all of them because we would have loads. I'm going to pop it in here. And I'm actually going to just fill like that in Canva. So it just automatically fills the whole page. Let's see, it goes like that. Right, so then I would just pop all of them into the pages. But just keep in mind your facing pages. If you have students who have written 2-page or 3-page compositions, if they are all 1 page, none of this matters. Okay? Once you're done and they're all in, so I'm just going to pretend we have a few of these, okay? Just for demonstration. Pretend these are all different compositions. No, doesn't like doing more than one. Okay. Okay. You want to continue like that until you have everything laid out. And then once you have everything, you're going to hit share. And you're going to download as a PDF. You want a PDF print to preserve all of the quality. And you actually want CMYK. I don't know why it defaults to RGB when it's PDF print. That's a Canva mystery to me, but I changed it to CMYK. Doesn't really matter. That's just me being pedantic. Download that. And now this is the file you will send to your printer as your book inside. Now again, this is where we have some choices to make. Depending on your printer, they might want just the cover page included in this file. So I'll show you that in a second. Or they might want a separate cover page. So this book, all my books look almost identical, but here's the truth. This book was printed at a local printer, digitalprintingireland.ie. They are perfectly fine for me to just send them the full thing with the cover pages at either end. Simple. A lot of your local printers will be happy to just set up the file for you if you send them that PDF. They don't care. If you are complicated like me and doing something like this book, which was actually created using KDP Print, which is the Amazon printing service. Now, okay, here's the deal. If you have a mega studio, learning to do this might be worth it to you. It is a lot cheaper. However, there's going to be a huge learning curve if you have never used KDP Print before, which I'm guessing is all of you, because you don't do what I do and self-publish books. I already have that account set up, so that is why I use it, to save some money once we went over a certain page count. It's not going to be worth it if you have a one teacher studio, like even if you have up to 50 students, I'd say it's probably not worth it. But definitely if you have like 20 students, no, just go with a local printer. I swear, you'll find one that is cheap as chips, who can do saddle stitching, which means a staple in the spine, so it's nice and narrow like that. You'll find one locally. This is a glued spine. It's called Perfect Bound. When they do that, so it's a glued spine and it's kind of flat there, right? So that's the difference. You get that flat edge. That's not something that's desirable. That's something that you have to do if you go over a certain page count. That's the only reason I've done it. It's because I don't have a choice, because I have too many students, too many pages to fit in a saddle stitched book, which is much cheaper. So that's why I went to KDP Print. I hope you didn't mind that little tangent, but you don't need to do that. So in most cases, you're going to go to a local printer or Vistaprint or something like that. And therefore, you are going to also add your cover on here, just at the start. And you're going to use Canva or use one of ours or whatever you want to do. And let's just say ours is going to be a rainbow. And you would put some text on there. Right? I'm not even going to do it because you know how to type words. That's not what this is about, right? So you would put some stuff on there. You can also use the Canva templates. So you could say, I don't even know if this will show up, but then think, yeah, look at that. These look like magazine covers. You could use this as a template. You could use this. Like, look at that. That could be a cover. You know, you don't have to get complicated. Feel free to use the templates. I do recommend adding one at the end. I just think it's nice to have a proper back cover. So say you do use that bird, then maybe the back cover is no text and the bird is smaller and you put in more of these sparkles, but there's... Right, that already looks alright, doesn't it? Maybe I'll put the bird down here. I'm not going to mess around with this too much, I promise. But I do need one more sparkle there. Okay, so I've just created kind of a matching back cover. Does that make sense? Before I, again, share, download, print, PDF print, change it to CMYK. More important if you've got these color covers included. And then you're going to send that to your printer. The reason I showed you the first way is in case your printer says I need the cover file separately. In which case your cover is going to look like, cover file is going to look like that. It's going to look like both the back and the front side by side on a double width sheet. Does that make sense? So that's what you have to do for KDP Print. but not for most sort of local or like more small business friendly printers. They'll just print it. Just send it to them with the cover. Okay. So I hope that was somewhat clear. I know it was a huge amount to cover in this kind of a format of video, but let me know if it was helpful. Let me know if you have follow-up questions, and I'm happy to stick around to answer any of that. That's a good tip. Thank you for that one. I'm going to see if that works right now so we can test it live. I'm going to look up bifold, see if that would do what we want. I could have gone with a double width page, so I think maybe that's what essentially you're suggesting, which won't actually work. Let's just see. Yeah, no, this won't help us. So all that is in Canva, that kind of a template. If it helps you visualize it, great. But all it is a double width page. It's not actually two pages shown side by side. And the difficulty there is you're going to have the exact wrong setup. You're going to have the opposite of what you want. Because what we would want is a view that looks like one page up here and then two. That's what we're going to get. Because we're going to get the first one is going to be this side. This one won't count. So unless you're putting that in there, even if you're putting in your cover, then you're going to also put in that blank page here. But again, you should still start with a right-hand side page. And that's what I don't think Canva can do. Please, someone correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not a Canva expert at all. Okay. So, yes. Oh, Carrie, thank you. I'm so glad it was helpful. Lee, thank you. Glad it was helpful. So any of those tips that just flew over your head, you can probably do without. I was trying to give you a comprehensive view of how you would get the result basically that I get, but keep in mind that I actually produce books, right? That's a thing that I already have the skills to do because of other reasons, not just because of producing books for my students, but it is a lot of fun. Susan, I think you might have come in late. Let me know if I'm missing something, but we put it into Musescore first, so you can watch the replay later and you'll see how I did that part and then this part in Canva. I answered that, Angie. I know there was a question I didn't though. No, maybe I'm imagining things. Oh yeah, Angie. So that's why I didn't answer your question in the flow of it, because I was going to explain that later. But if you want to print it at home, you can use a comb binder or a wire binder. Personally, I have a comb binder, which I don't use for this, but I use for other things. Let me show you something that's come out. Here's Frigia and Frank, a VMT resource. That's comb binding right there. It's just the plastic type. I wish I had bought a metal one. It's not worth changing. I don't care that much, but I don't really love the comb binding. So I would recommend the wire if you're going to buy a binding machine. But for these, this doesn't... Your students will still get a kick out of it. I have no negative things to say about this, except I really love them getting the, the proper book that feels just like their other music books. So that's an investment that's worth it to me, but we all have to balance things out, right? Great question. How many months does my composing process last? So we start these in, let me see, this year we started them in end of February, and is that right? Yes, towards the end of February, and we just got the books this week. So that's start to finish everything. The actual composing with students is about 6 weeks of lessons, where we take about 10 minutes out of each lesson to do each step. With some students who are indecisive or humming and hawing and stuff like that, that is going to take longer. Okay, so you need to set aside extra time if you have students who you just know are indecisive by nature, or if they have ASD, ADHD, they're going to find it tough to make those decisions, and you don't want to be in a position where you're rushing them and getting impatient, because it can be frustrating. I'm going to be honest with you. it can be frustrating when you're with a student who won't make a decision, and ordinarily you'd have all the time in the world for them to make a decision because you think they're just taking time and they're taking care of it. But you're thinking, everyone else is finished. I need to send this book out, right? So you're not saying that. I'm just saying it can get a little bit frustrating. So I would start earlier with those students or plan to spend a bit more of your lesson time. I do not charge students extra. This is another part of what I call my all-inclusive studio. The only extra charge a student ever has in my studio, aside from their fees, the only extra charge they ever have is if they go in for an exam and they pay the exam fee. I get them to reimburse me for the exam fee. That is it. Everything else is always included. All their books, projects like this, recitals, don't charge fees, extra fees. You could definitely charge. You could also do this as a project to like raise money for a charity, and then you could do it that you recoup the costs and the profit goes to charity as long as you were clear that that was what was happening. So maybe the books are each, €10, $10, and they cost you $5 to produce. I'm just guessing, right? And you donate your time in creating them to charity, and then the parents are donating with every purchase. That's just off the top of my head. Could be an option. Lynette, I'm glad it was helpful. Really, really fun. I hope you do try it out. Let me know if you do. Okay, everyone. So I knew that was going to be an intense one. I hope you enjoyed it, all of you, and you can watch this replay as many times as you want. These stay on YouTube, as you know, so they're here whenever you want them. And let me just see what we're talking about next week, because we only have a few weeks left. Where am I? I mean, inside the spreadsheet that I'm looking at, not where am I. I know I'm in the office. Okay. Oh, yeah. Next week we are talking about neurodiversity in the piano teaching studio, which is kind of a wonderful segue from me talking about ASD students and ADHD students and the composing process. So we will be talking in depth about that next week. Until then, enjoy making your composing plans. I hope the tips were useful for you, and yeah, feel free to watch this as many times as you like. I'll see you next week.